under a sky heavy with drifting clouds and the slow dimming light of a prehistoric dusk. The land stretched endlessly, a vast and breathing canvas of green ferns, towering conifers, and the endless rhythm of life that had already persisted for millions of years, each sound and sensation painting a world both alien and achingly alive. You can almost feel the rough textures of the damp soil beneath your feet, the air thick with moisture and the sharp resinous scent of trees whose ancestors would one day become coal, the low rustle of insects humming like hidden machinery inside the endless forest, while somewhere far in the distance the deep, trembling call of a massive creature echoed as if the earth itself spoke, vibrating through the ground and into the marrow of your bones. And in this world you notice the slow movement of a herd of great sauropods, their immense bodies swaying with hypnotic grace, tails sweeping lazily through the air like living pendulums, each step pressing deep into the mud and releasing the sweet mineral smell of wet earth. Smaller creatures scurry between their feet, darting quick and nervous, their eyes flashing in the slanting rays of a sun that burns red and gold at the horizon, and the scene feels eternal yet fragile, a living balance where survival is not a triumph but a constant negotiation with hunger, weather, and the shadow of predators whose patience is as deep as the forest. The sauropods breathe in long, thunderous sighs, the mist of their breath rising like ghosts into the cooling evening air, and you hear the quiet crack of branches under their weight, the splash of water as they wade into a shallow marsh, dipping long necks to strip entire trees of their foliage in a single slow movement, while insects swarm thick around them, buzzing with the persistent whine that never ceases, a constant song of this ancient world, and above them pterosaurs wheel against the fading light, their wings catching the last fire of the day. As they glide like shadows painted across the sky, the air tastes of damp vegetation and faint salt carried from some distant inland sea, and as you breathe it in you sense how dense and heavy the atmosphere is, rich in oxygen, a world designed for growth, for vastness, for creatures of impossible scale, and beneath the surface of the marsh amphibians croak and shift, their slippery bodies vanishing into black water with a single splash, while fish, armored and primitive, stir the depths, there. Movements felt more than seen, adding a subtle vibration to the water that your skin almost detects as if you were truly standing there. Night begins to fall slowly, not with sudden darkness but with a deepening of shadows, a cooling of air, a chorus of unseen voices rising as if the forest itself begins to dream, and with it comes danger, for predators wait for such hours, their bodies adapted for stealth, their senses sharpened to pierce the veil of night, and you imagine the slow movement of a theropod through the underbrush, the glimmer of eyes catching stray light, the almost silent crackle of leaves as taloned feet press against them, and though you cannot yet see it, you feel the tension in the air, a tautness like the moment before a storm breaks, and everything alive around you seems to respond. The herd tightening, the smaller creatures freezing mid-motion, even the insects faltering in their rhythm, as if the forest holds its breath for what is to come. And here lies the paradox of this ancient earth, that it is both a cradle of immense abundance and a stage for relentless struggle, where every dawn means another chance at survival, but also another reminder of mortality, and as you let yourself drift deeper into this scene you feel the cool night wrapping around you, the distant rumble of the sauropods retreating into darkness, the faint splash of something moving unseen through water, and the growing certainty that somewhere, not far from where you stand, something watches, waiting, hidden in the shifting sea of ferns, preparing to move before the stars take full command of the sky, and though your eyes search the shadows you cannot yet find the shape, only the sensation of its presence, and in that silence you realize that the story of life in this world is just beginning, vast, untamed, and filled with mysteries that even now whisper in the wind that slides cold against your skin, leaving you with the uneasy thought of what the night will reveal once the darkness is complete. The night settles over the ancient land with a slowness that feels almost deliberate, as if the earth itself lingers in twilight to grant one final glance at the massive silhouettes of the sauropods fading into the dark, and as the stars prick through the heavy skies you hear the forest transform, its voice shifting from the rustle of daylight to the murmurs and sharp cries of creatures that thrive when shadows conceal them, the air thickening with the scent of damp soil, rotting vegetation, and the faint metallic tang of distant water. And into this cloak of night steps the true hunter, the theropod whose body is built for silence, its muscles fluid beneath a hide dappled to vanish among ferns and tree shadows, its breath slow and steady like the tide, and though you cannot see it clearly, you feel its presence as though the air itself is pressing against you, heavy and expectant, every sound magnified in your ears. The chirr of insects, the hollow croak of amphibians, the whisper of wind brushing through tall cycads, and beneath it all the near inaudible crack of leaves that betray movement, and you imagine the gleam of teeth catching moonlight, the glisten of eyes unblinking as they lock onto prey, and somewhere nearby smaller dinosaurs huddled together, feathered bodies pressed close for warmth and for the illusion of safety, their high-pitched squeaks nervous and stuttering, and they too feel the weight of the predator's gaze, their tiny hearts racing as shadows glide across the ground, and above them the wings of pterosaurs beat slowly, searching for fish in black rivers that glimmer faintly like strands of liquid silver under starlight, their cries harsh, echoing, a reminder that survival is not only about hiding but about daring. And still the theropod advances, each step measured, deliberate, as the forest seems to lean toward it, branches shifting with a sound like whispers. And you sense the drama of this moment stretching beyond one hunt, becoming a symbol of the endless game of balance where prey and predator shape one another across generations, teeth becoming sharper, senses keener, instincts more refined, and in this thick air you taste the history of evolution itself, each moment a link in a chain that will extend millions of years forward, and as the predator closes in on the herd of smaller herbivores you hear the sudden thundering of panic, the crashing of bodies through undergrowth, the sharp cracks of branches splitting under their desperate flight, and for an instant the night becomes a blur of motion and sound, the heavy breathing of the hunter, the squeals of its quarry, the hot reek of fear rising like steam, until silence falls again, sudden and absolute, broken only by the low rumble of satisfaction as the predator claims its prize, a sound not of cruelty but of survival, a rhythm that has echoed since life first took breath. And when the chaos subsides you are left with the hum of insects resuming their endless song, the far-off lap of waves against some hidden shore, the sigh of the forest releasing its tension, and in this calm you sense that the true story is not the hunt itself but the resilience of those who remain, the small creatures slipping back into shadows, learning, adapting, shaping themselves for the dawn when danger will be visible once more. As the night deepens the stars grow brighter, unfamiliar constellations stretching like silver scars across the heavens, meteors streaking faintly through the thick atmosphere, their glow brief but searing, and you imagine how this sky, untouched by human eyes, held secrets of time and fate long before our kind would ever wonder at them, and beneath this celestial canvas the earth continues its breath, warm swamps exhaling mist that curls low over the ground, carrying with it the earthy perfume of moss and wet leaves, while unseen creatures slide beneath water surfaces, their bodies brushing softly against reeds that tremble in response, and high in the canopy the calls of primitive birds echo, voices that bridge the age of dinosaurs to the age yet to come, each note a fragile prophecy of survival, and as you let your senses drink this in you begin to feel the scale of it, not just one night in the Mesozoic but an endless procession of nights, each filled with hunts, escapes, births, deaths, and the quiet persistence of life carving a path through the shifting landscapes of time. And yet, even in this rhythm of continuity, there are moments that mark turning points, subtle shifts invisible in the moment but profound across millennia, and as you listen now to the low growl of distant thunder and feel the faint tremor beneath your feet, you realize that such a turning point may be unfolding, for the earth itself is never still, and deep beneath its crust forces are stirring, volcanic breaths that will soon reshape the land, belching ash that will dim the sun and test every creature's endurance. And, though the herd still grazes and the predator still feeds, there is already in the air a heaviness, a taste of ash on the wind, so faint it could be imagined yet undeniable once noticed, a reminder that even the greatest beasts cannot control the wider hand of nature. The night carries on, but with each sound, each shift of air, you feel a slow gathering, as if the world is preparing for change, and though no creature yet understands it, every step they take, every choice they make, is part of a story leading toward both triumph and inevitable loss, and you are left in this darkness with a question echoing in your thoughts. What will dawn reveal after this uneasy night, when the first light touches a land already shifting beneath the weight of unseen forces waiting to emerge? With the coming of dawn the ancient world is washed in a muted glow that feels both tender and foreboding, the mist rising from the swamps like pale spirits curling through the forest, catching the first light of a sun that filters weakly through the thick atmosphere, turning every droplet into glimmers that quiver upon fern fronds and conifer needles. And you sense how this fragile beauty overlays a land still trembling from distant rumblings beneath the crust, as if the earth itself dreams. Restlessly, its heartbeats expressed in quakes that ripple through the soil and startle creatures into sudden silence. The sauropod herd stirs from its restless night, great necks arching toward the canopy as they strip branches heavy with damp leaves, their skin glistening with dew, and as they move you hear the sucking sound of mud beneath their feet, the splash of marsh water displaced by their weight, each step resonant like a drumbeat through the valley, while nearby smaller ornithopods emerge cautiously from their hiding places, their feather-like filaments damp with mist, their eyes bright and wide as they sniff the air for signs of predators, and all around them the morning chorus rises, a symphony of insects buzzing in relentless cadence, amphibians croaking from hidden pools, and the thin cries of early pterosaurs as they launch from craggy perches to sweep low over the rivers in search of glistening prey. The smell of the morning is thick, an earthy blend of wet vegetation and the faint acrid trace of sulfur that drifts almost imperceptibly on the breeze, a reminder that far-away volcanoes have awakened and their presence will not remain distant forever, and yet life continues with stubborn rhythm, herbivores feeding, predators stalking, and the very forest stretching higher and thicker with each season, leaves vast and leathery to drink the generous air, trunks rising like columns to the heavens, and among the roots tiny mammals scurry, unnoticed yet. Resilient, their warm bodies shivering against the damp cold, their sensitive noses twitching as they collect seeds and insects, fragile but destined for survival because of their adaptability. The ground vibrates faintly and a sudden crack echoes as a massive tree collapses, felled not by creatures but by age and the subtle shifting beneath the soil, and as it crashes it releases a spray of spores and the pungent perfume of rot, and immediately scavengers approach, insects swarming into the exposed wood, lizards darting to snap them up, the forest wasting nothing, every death feeding another life. Further north the rivers swell with meltwater from distant highlands, carrying silt that turns the streams brown and sluggish, yet in their depths armored fish flash like burnished metal, their bodies prehistoric shields against the snapping jaws of predators that dart quick as shadows, and above the surface long-necked plesiosaurs patrol, their movements smooth and undulating, their heads breaking water with sudden sharpness before vanishing once again, leaving ripples that widen slowly, and you feel the air heavy with salt and algae where rivers meet shallow seas, the taste of brine sharp on the tongue as waves lap against shores lined with cycads bending in the wind. As the sun climbs higher the heat builds and the chorus of the forest deepens, cicadas droning with a resonance that seems to vibrate inside your skull, while in shaded clearings the air feels cooler, the scent of crushed ferns releasing a green bitterness, and creatures rest in these sanctuaries, their flanks rising and falling with labored breaths, conserving energy for the long hours ahead when the sun will press down with unbearable weight, and yet it is not only the sun they endure but also the looming shifts of the earth, for the tremors grow stronger, subtle but insistent, a warning whispered through soil and root, unsettling even the confident steps of predators who pause mid-hunt to raise their heads, nostrils flaring, as if they too sense that the land itself is restless. And in this uneasy calm you watch a scene unfold where a group of ceratosaurs approach the edge of a marsh, their crests glistening with moisture, their eyes narrow and fixed upon a cluster of young herbivores feeding carelessly, the air alive with tension as the hunters spread out with instinctual precision, moving in silence broken only by the wet squelch of mud beneath clawed feet. And for a long moment time seems to stretch, the only sound the low buzz of dragonflies whose wings shimmer blue in sunlight, until suddenly the stillness shatters with a shriek of alarm, the prey scattering in every direction, water erupting in sprays as bodies plunge through reeds, the predators lunging, snapping, the air filled with the guttural growls of hunger and the high squeals of terror, and once again the forest bears witness to the eternal balance, predator and prey locked in a dance as old as life itself. When the violence subsides and silence returns the forest breathes once more, creatures emerging hesitantly, the air still tinged with the coppery scent of blood mingled with the musk of damp plants, and in the background the rumble of the earth continues, louder now, a promise that greater upheavals lie ahead, though for the creatures of this age such foreknowledge is impossible, and they live only in the immediacy of survival, eating, hiding, pursuing, reproducing, their lives. Brief but essential threads in the fabric of evolution, and as you observe this cycle you realize that the true story of the dinosaurs is not one of simple dominance but of resilience in a world that constantly shifts, challenges, and remakes itself, forcing every creature to adapt or perish. And now as the light fades again into the long stretch of dusk, painting the horizon with hues of violet and red, you feel the stillness that precedes another night, a stillness that is heavier than before. The sulfur scent stronger, the tremors no longer gentle but insistent, and you know the land is on the edge of transformation, a transformation that will test not only the greatest giants but the smallest hidden survivors. And as darkness falls and the forest begins once more to sing its nocturnal chorus, the question lingers in your thoughts. How will life endure when the very earth begins to burn beneath their feet? The night deepens across the ancient land, and the stars struggle to pierce the haze of gases that drift high in the sky, their faint silver light reflected in pools of still water where insects skim the surface in restless patterns. And in this dimness the forest breathes with a pulse that feels both eternal and fragile, the rustle of leaves masking the careful movements of nocturnal hunters who thrive where others sleep, their eyes glowing with captured moonlight as they weave through the undergrowth, tails brushing damp ferns, claws leaving faint grooves in the softened soil that still trembles with unseen force from beneath. For the earth has not grown calm but more unsettled, its restlessness carried through root and stone, a low vibration that hums like a warning drum in the marrow of every living thing, and yet life continues, because it must, because the creatures of this world know nothing of tomorrow, and understand only the rhythm of hunger, thirst, danger, and fleeting safety. High above the canopy the wings of pterosaurs beat against cool currents, their cries sharp against the chorus of frogs and insects, and they dive with sudden precision toward rivers where moonlight dances on ripples, their long jaws snapping fish from the shallows, scales glistening before vanishing into gullets lined with teeth, and when they rise again droplets rain from their wings like falling stars, momentary sparks of light against a background of endless dark, while on the ground the smaller mammals stir, ever cautious, their soft fur catching dew as they scurry in silence from one root to another, tiny hands clutching seeds, their ears flicking at every distant sound, and though they live in the shadows of giants their resilience hums like a quiet promise of a future none of them can imagine. Deeper in the forest, shadows move with heavier intent as a pack of dromaeosaurs stalk silently, their feathers dark against the foliage, their movements coordinated like a single organism, breath misting in the chill night air, talons flexing with each deliberate step, their eyes locked on a juvenile hadrosaur that strayed too far from the herd, and the night seems to hold its breath as the predators coil, waiting, their bodies trembling with potential energy until the moment bursts and they surge forward, a blur of motion, the air filled with the startled cry of their prey, branches snapping under the weight of desperate escape, water splashing as bodies crash into streams, and though the hunt is swift and merciless the silence that follows is even heavier, broken only by the sound of tearing flesh, the smell of iron-rich blood mingling with the damp musk of ferns, a reminder that survival here is always purchased at the edge of violence, that beauty and brutality are never separate but woven into one fabric that drapes across this prehistoric world. As the predators feed a distant thunder echoes, not from the sky but from deep beneath, rolling in. Waves that ripple across the land, startling birds into sudden flight, sending ripples through pools, shaking loose dust from ancient cliffs, and the hadrosaur herd miles away stirs restlessly, their calls low and uneasy, their great bodies pressing together for comfort though none can protect them from the trembling ground, and far to the south a volcano belches ash into the night, its glow faint but insistent on the horizon, an ember that hints at firestorms to come, yet the creatures do not. No, they cannot know, they live inside the eternal present, responding only to what presses upon them now, the scent of predators, the call of kin, the ache of hunger. By dawn the tremors have subsided to faint whispers and mist once again curls through valleys, painting the forest with pale strokes of light, and the cycle repeats, herbivores grazing, carnivores prowling, insects buzzing in endless song, plants unfurling toward the generous atmosphere, but always beneath it all the pulse of change grows stronger, a slow inevitable march carried in molten rivers beneath the crust, and the forest itself seems to sense it, trees leaning with strange angles as roots strain against soil that shifts, their leaves coated in faint ash that drifts unseen from distant mountains, a bitter taste on the tongue of creatures that drink from streams, though they do not understand why their water grows sharp with minerals, why the air sometimes smells of brimstone, why the horizon glows red on nights when it should be black. In the coastal shallows life also feels the changes as tides carry not only salt and silt but flecks of volcanic glass, sharp fragments that glitter among shells, cutting into the soft flesh of unwary swimmers. Yet even here resilience reigns. Ammonites spiral their shells ever tighter, fish flash silver beneath the waves, plesiosaurs glide with effortless grace, their long necks weaving arcs above the surface before plunging again into hidden depths, and far above them enormous pterosaurs wheel with wingspans as wide as small trees, their cries echoing over the surf, a chorus both haunting and magnificent. Yet even their kingdom in the skies will not remain untouched by the creeping shadow of fire and ash. Inland, another drama unfolds as two massive sauropods clash near a dwindling waterhole, their enormous necks swinging like titanic whips, the sound of impact reverberating like thunder as skin splits and dust rises, their bellows so deep they rattle the lungs of every creature nearby. And though the battle is not for territory but for dominance, for access to shrinking resources, it feels to those who witness like a storm made flesh, a storm of muscle and bone that shakes the earth, scattering smaller creatures in panicked waves, until, at last one giant yields, retreating with wounds that ooze down leathery flanks, and the victor raises its head to the sky, calling not in triumph but in raw survival, for everything here is survival, every breath pulled against odds, every heartbeat a wager against the endless pressures of hunger, predator, and the trembling of the earth itself. As days bleed into weeks, the signs of upheaval grow more obvious, nights darker with ash, days warmer with strange heat that seems to rise from the ground itself, and storms roll in heavier, clouds bruised purple and green, lightning cracking across plains where herds scatter and regroup in frantic patterns, their cries lost beneath the howl of winds that tear branches from trees and churn rivers into foam, and through it all the insects persist, their endless buzzing defying thunder, their numbers swelling in swarms that darken the air, feeding birds, feeding small reptiles, feeding everything that can catch them, and so the cycle sustains itself even as the greater balance teeters on the edge. Then one night the volcano that had smouldered on the horizon erupts in full fury, the sky torn open with red fire that spills like liquid stars down its flanks, the roar louder than any storm, louder than any beast, a sound that drowns thought and instinct alike, and creatures for miles scatter in blind panic, trampling, crashing, leaping into rivers, diving into burrows, all seeking escape from a force that cannot be escaped, and ash begins to fall thick and hot, coating leaves, clogging streams, searing eyes and lungs, the forest transformed in hours into a ghostly grey wasteland where every step leaves a footprint that fills again with powder, and the air burns to breathe. And yet even here some persist, hiding in caves, huddling beneath fallen logs, burrowing deeper into soil where the ash cannot reach, their small hearts hammering but still beating, always beating. Days later the eruption subsides, but the world remains changed, the sky dim with haze that filters sunlight into strange colors, red at noon, purple at dusk, the plants struggling beneath layers of soot, their leaves curled, their growth slowed, and the great herds wander farther and farther to find food, their bones jutting sharper beneath skin, their cries more desperate, predators too lean and reckless, attacking with frenzy because hunger gnaws at them more fiercely than ever. And in this new landscape, survival becomes even more fragile, every encounter more desperate, every meal more uncertain, and yet life does not yield. It bends, adapts, twists into new forms, because that is its essence, because even in the shadow of fire and ash, in the choking haze of skies turned strange, life persists, and as the nights grow quieter, as tremors soften and the world steadies once more into an uneasy calm, you sense that this is only one chapter in a much longer story, a story written not in words, but in bone and stone and the unbroken rhythm of survival that will carry forward into ages still unimaginable. The haze still lingers across the land, though weeks have passed since the great eruption, and the sky wears it like a shroud, dimming the sun so that even at midday the light falls in muted tones of copper and gold, casting the forest into a dreamlike gloom where shadows stretch longer than they should, and every leaf gleams with a faint layer of ash that clings stubbornly despite the rains, and the rains themselves fall heavier now, thick sheets that hammer the ground and carve rivulets through The soil, carrying grey streams into rivers that swell beyond their banks, flooding valleys where creatures once grazed, turning meadows into marshes and marshes into shallow lakes, and in these shifting waters life both suffers and thrives, amphibians breeding in sudden abundance while larger beasts struggle to find solid ground, their great bodies sinking into mire that will not release them, their struggles ending in silence as scavengers gather. Insects first, then lizards, then feathered. Predators who tear the soft flesh and scatter the remains until even the bones are buried in the muck, hidden to wait for some distant age to be uncovered. The forest itself seems changed, its scent sharper, filled with rot where fallen trees lie blanketed in ash and fungus blooms in strange shapes, luminous in the half-light, glowing faintly like embers as night falls, and in this strange new world the creatures must adapt quickly or perish. The herds of hadrosaurs moving restlessly. There. Calls carrying a mournful note as they search for edible leaves, stripping even the weaker plants once ignored, their jaws grinding constantly, desperate to fill bellies that never seem satisfied, while the predators follow close, their bodies leaner, eyes brighter with hunger, attacks more frequent, reckless, desperate lunges that end often in failure yet sometimes in victory, and each victory leaves the forest ringing with cries of pain, the air sharp with blood, the ground churned with the violence of survival. Far from these struggles the sea's two bare scars of change, their surfaces warmer, their colors shifting to duller greens as blooms of algae spread wide, choking shallows with strange thickness, yet beneath these mats life flickers resilient, fish darting silver streaks, ammonites coiling in patient spirals, plesiosaurs gliding with grace as though untouched by chaos. But even they cannot ignore the weight of ash carried downstream, their lungs straining when they surface. The taste of water altered, harsher, bitter, and though they swim onward they too are creatures caught in the pull of a world remaking itself. Inland, tremors return though softer than before, a reminder that the earth's heart has not cooled, and each quiver ripples through the soil like the echo of some vast heartbeat, startling herds, toppling weakened cliffs into rivers, sending clouds of dust to mingle with the ever-present haze. And in those moments of trembling the forest grows silent. Insects ceasing their chorus, birds halting their cries, as though all life holds its breath until the shiver passes, and then, slowly, the sound returns, tentative at first, then swelling again into the relentless rhythm of existence. In the lowlands small mammals thrive in ways unseen by the giants, scurrying through tunnels where the ash cannot reach, feeding on seeds stored carefully, insects trapped in roots, their bodies warm and quick, their litters frequent, and though they are vulnerable to any predator who might dig them out, their numbers grow steadily, silently, unnoticed, their survival owed not to strength or size, but to adaptability and caution, traits that will carry them far beyond this age though they cannot know it. As days stretch into cycles of dim light and heavy rain the land grows wilder, rivers carving new paths, forests thinning where ash lies too thick for plants to recover, meadows turning into open marsh where reeds rise tall and insects swarm in. Clouds so dense they darken the air, feeding flocks of small feathered dinosaurs who wheel above them in patterns as graceful as any modern birds, their calls sharp and echoing across the wetlands, and in these gatherings you sense the beginnings of something new, a shift in the balance where smaller forms begin to flourish while the giants struggle, their size once a gift now a burden in a world where resources thin and conditions change too quickly. Still the great sauropods endure, there. Herds moving across vast distances, their long necks sweeping through whatever foliage remains, their massive hearts pumping tirelessly to sustain them, and though many fall to hunger or exhaustion the survivors continue, each step a testament to persistence, their shadows vast against the muted horizon, and when they pass the ground shakes with weight that seems eternal, though nothing here is eternal, for even stone wears down, even mountains crumble, even species that dominate for millions of years must yield in time. Predators follow them, shadowing the herds, waiting for weakness, striking when opportunity comes, their feathers slick with rain, their claws sharp as the shards of volcanic glass that litter the soil, and in their amber eyes glows the same fire as always, the relentless need to feed, to survive, to endure another day. For in this world survival is not a grand story but a chain of moments, each linked by hunger and fear, each fragile, each temporary, and yet from these moments the future is built, the story of life continuing even as the earth shifts beneath it. Night comes again, thick and heavy, the air cooler, the stars faint behind drifting haze, the forest alive with hidden sounds, chirps, croaks, rustles, the low rumble of distant beasts, the soft flutter of wings overhead, and in this darkness the small creatures thrive most of all, darting unseen, feeding, reproducing, while the great ones sleep fitfully, their massive bodies vulnerable, there. Dreams perhaps filled with echoes of a world that is slipping from them, though they cannot know it, though they cannot imagine anything but the endless cycle of survival, and yet you, watching from the long thread of time, sense how this chapter bends towards something greater, how every tremor, every plume of ash, every desperate cry in the night is part of a turning that will one day close this age and open another, and still the forest breathes, still the rivers flow, still the creatures move through shadow and light, because even as the world remakes itself, life clings, adapts, persists, and prepares unknowingly for whatever comes next. The world drifts into a strange equilibrium in the aftermath of fire and flood, the sky still veiled with haze that scatters sunlight into muted tones so that dawn arrives not with brilliance but with a slow bleeding of amber and grey across the horizon, and under this dim canopy the forest moves in uneasy rhythm, plants straining against ash-coated soil, leaves curling at their edges, roots pushing deep in search of cleaner water, while creatures large and small adapt in whatever ways they can. The hadrosaurs roaming farther each day, their calls echoing across valleys as they search for edible foliage, their herds tighter, more protective, wary of every shadow that stirs, and in the wake of their passage predators stalk silently, their feathers slick with mist, their eyes bright with hunger that grows sharper with each lean season, their movements quicker, more reckless, as though they sense that time presses upon them as heavily as hunger itself. Rivers run swollen still, brown with silt and ash, carrying the scars of landslides that crumble into them with every tremor, yet in their depths life persists, fish flashing silver, amphibians thriving in the murk, pterosaurs skimming the surface with cries that pierce the haze like jagged shards of sound, their wings stirring the mist into brief spirals before they vanish into the distance, leaving only ripples behind, and along the banks the smaller mammals scurry, cautious but tireless, their whiskers twitching, their tiny paws quick as they gather seeds and insects, their burrows hidden deep where the air remains cool and clean, and though they are overlooked by the giants, their quiet persistence hums like an undercurrent that will one day rise to dominance when the world reshapes itself yet again. The ground remains restless, trembling with faint quivers that roll beneath the feet of the herds, sending ripples through pools and causing even the most confident sauropods to pause mid-step, their long necks raised, their eyes scanning horizons they cannot understand, their bodies swaying like ships upon a shifting sea, and when the tremors fade they move again, yet unease lingers, an instinctual knowledge that the earth itself is not still, that their world is both cradle and threat, life-giver and destroyer, and above them storms gather, heavy clouds bruised and green, lightning lashing across plains with terrifying brilliance, thunder rolling like the bellow of some unseen beast, rain falling in, torrents so dense it blinds, forcing creatures to huddle beneath whatever shelter they can find, wings folded tight, bodies pressed together, the smell of wet vegetation mingling with ozone sharpness, the sound of water everywhere, drumming on leaves, rushing through gullies, flooding low ground into temporary lakes where reeds rise and insects swarm in frenzied abundance, feeding all who dare to hunt them. In these moments of storm the balance shifts, predators waiting in patience near, floodplains striking when disoriented prey stumble into waterlogged traps, jaws snapping, claws slashing, the cries of struggle swallowed by the roar of rain, and when the storm passes and the clouds thin, the forest emerges altered, trees fallen, branches torn, pools left in places once dry, carcasses washed downstream to feed scavengers, and the air filled with the sharp, metallic scent of fresh destruction. A reminder that nothing here remains untouched, that every creature, every tree, every stone is part of the endless turning of cycles. Yet not all change is violent, for in hidden groves new growth pushes stubbornly, shoots piercing ash layers, leaves spreading wide to catch even the dim light, fungi blooming in ghostly clusters upon fallen logs, glowing faintly at night like scattered embers, drawing insects that in turn feed small reptiles, the chain of life weaving itself anew from every fracture. And in these quiet corners of resilience the future whispers, subtle but insistent, promising that survival does not belong only to the massive but to the adaptable, to those who can thrive in shadow as well as in light. Across the coastal shallows the sea reflects the dimmed sky in rippling sheets of dull copper, waves lapping with a heavy scent of brine mixed with volcanic minerals, and among these waters the plesiosaurs still glide, their movements elegant, their long necks weaving arcs above the surface before plunging deep, hunting fish that scatter like living sparks, while above them the giant pterosaurs will silently, their shadows sliding across the surf like ghosts, their wings so vast that even the haze cannot dim their silhouettes, and when they cry the sound travels far, echoing over the drowned coasts and rocky cliffs, a reminder of dominance in the skies though even their realm trembles beneath unseen changes. Inland the great sauropods continue their endless march, their herds smaller now, losses mounting from hunger and exhaustion. Yet those that endure remain monuments of persistence, their silhouettes vast against the strange light, their calls deep and resonant, vibrating through the chest like echoes of the earth itself, and though each step seems eternal, nothing truly is, for even their bones will one day lie buried in the shifting soil, waiting to tell their story in fragments to an age yet unborn. Predators shadow them still, their bodies lean, their strikes sudden and brutal, their survival written in blood and silence, and though hunger drives them to reckless attacks the cycle continues, hunter and hunted, life and death, woven tightly into the fabric of existence that stretches across every corner of this dimmed world. Night falls again, slow and heavy, the stars faint behind drifting haze, the moon a blurred disk that glows weakly, and the forest comes alive with hidden sounds, chirps, rustles, low rumbles, the flutter of wings, the splash of movement in dark waters, a symphony of persistence, and in this music you feel the heart of the age beating, slower perhaps, heavier with the weight of ash and storm, but beating still, refusing silence, refusing to yield, for life clings even when the world shifts beneath it, adapts even when fire scours the land, grows even in the shadow of destruction, and as this night deepens into silence you sense the story pressing onward, toward trials yet unseen, toward transformations that will test every creature beneath this dim, shifting sky, and still the forest breathes, still the rivers run, still survival shapes itself moment by moment into the long, unbroken thread of existence. Beneath the silence that follows great endings there lingers not emptiness, but a subtle resonance, a hum that vibrates through stone and soil, carrying with it the memory of lives that once filled the earth in numbers and forms so vast they seemed eternal, yet nothing is eternal, and the great beasts that strode the plains, swam the rivers, and ruled the skies have yielded their dominion to the slow patient hand of time. Still their story is not erased, it is written in layers upon layers of sediment. Pressed into stone their bones, transformed into monuments, hidden beneath mountains, deserts, and oceans, waiting for discovery, waiting for voices that have not yet been born to speak of them again. The land itself carries scars of their passing, ash fused into rock craters filled with rain that became lakes, cliffs etched with the outlines of forests burned to shadows, yet from those ashes rose green shoots, ferns, mosses, and in time new forms that did not resemble the giants who came before yet carried echoes of their resilience. The cycles continued as they always do, night following day, storm following calm, death yielding to life, though altered, transformed. The air that once carried the cries of pterosaurs now fills with the wing beats of birds' descendants, shaped by survival, refined into lightness, their bones, hollow their feathers, shimmering in sunlight that breaks through clouds. The waters that once held the great reptiles became home to new swimmers, scaled and sleek, then furred and agile, until in time creatures rose from the depths to walk upon shores, their footprints pressed beside those of ancestors long vanished, as though time had folded space upon itself, and written two different chapters upon the same page, and above all the stars continued their patient course, indifferent to the rise and fall of any who walked below their light, travelled across gulfs of silence, touching oceans, jungles, mountains, deserts, lighting both extinction and renewal, with the same quiet brilliance. And though the great beasts had fallen, their story did not end, for stories are not bound by flesh or bone, they ripple outward, carried by memory, by stone, by whispers in the wind, and by eyes that would one day find the fragments buried in cliffs and riverbeds, piecing together lives from shards and shadows, speaking aloud names never known to those who bore them, giving voice once more to the titans who walked when the world was young. In this way their presence lingered not as ghosts, but as foundations. Their age became a mirror by which those who came later measured their own fragility, their own impermanence, a reminder that dominion is temporary and survival a fleeting triumph in the vast current of time, And yet there is beauty in that impermanence, for it reveals the thread that binds all who live, whether scaled or feathered, furred or bare, the drive to endure, to adapt, to persist, even when skies darken and fires fall, even when seas rise and earth trembles, the thread stretches unbroken from the giants of the past to the fragile beings of the present, and beyond into futures unimagined. The forests that grow now whisper with echoes of tales that once swept through their branches. The winds that cross open plains carry the faint rhythm of footfalls that shook the ground. The rivers that carve through stone sing with memories of bodies that once waded their depths. Though unseen, the resonance is their subtle constant enduring, and those who listen closely can almost feel it beneath their feet. In the heartbeat of the earth itself, the lesson that lingers is not despair but continuity. Endings are beginnings, extinction is transformation, memory is survival. Though the world that was is gone, the essence remains, shaping what comes after, reminding every creature that walks, swims or flies that they are part of a lineage vast and unbroken, a chapter in a book that stretches beyond comprehension, a flame carried forward through shadow into light. And so the age of giants closes not with silence, but with transition, their story dissolving into soil, into water, into air, until it becomes inseparable from the world itself, a story that does not end, but changes form, waiting to be found, waiting to be told again by voices of tomorrow, who will look back across the abyss of time, and know that even in endings there is endurance, even in silence there is song, even in loss there is legacy. The land stretches out beneath a sky still tinged with the muted gold of a sun that struggles to pierce lingering haze, a world transformed yet familiar in the quiet cadence of its survival. For though the giants that once walked these plains, swam these seas, and claimed the skies with wings vast and powerful, have long since yielded to time and fate, their presence lingers like a pulse in the bones of the earth, etched into stone, pressed into sediment, whispered through wind and water, and everywhere there are echoes of what was, resonating in ways both subtle and profound, shaping the rhythm of life for all who follow. Rivers continue to wind through valleys, carrying traces of ash and mineral that color their currents in muted browns and greens, and in their depths the descendants of ancient swimmers, scaled, feathered, furred, move with grace honed over countless generations, their bodies quick, adaptive, and aware of the ever-shifting balance of life and death that governs their world, while along the banks the mammals that once huddled in hidden burrows, small and cautious, have multiplied and diversified, scurrying across roots and reeds, their eyes glinting with intelligence, their whiskers tasting the air, ears flicking at every subtle vibration, carrying forward instincts honed in the shadow of monsters long gone yet remembered in every movement and choice. Forests rise from the ashes and fallen giants' bones, sprouts piercing the soil with vibrant defiance, leaves stretching toward light now filtered through layers of clouds, branches entwining into canopies where shadows shift and birdsong rings clear, a chorus of life reborn, feeding insects, sustaining reptiles, giving cover to small mammals, and in these groves and wetlands the balance of predator and prey continues, refined and reshaped, the dance eternal, each step and flight a negotiation with forces older than themselves, each movement a testimony to endurance, to adaptation, to the relentless heartbeat of survival. And in the skies, though the pterosaurs of old are gone, their echoes live in new wings, the birds that wheel and glide, soar and dive, their feathers catching light with shimmering hues, their calls piercing the dawn with sharpness that recalls the cries of ancestors yet transformed, lighter, swifter, attuned to currents of wind and patterns of prey, yet carrying with them the same elemental drive to claim space, to hunt, to endure, to persist. Mountains remain, their peaks veiled in mist, slopes scarred by ancient lava flows, landslides, and tremors that shook the very foundations of the world, yet in their crags and valleys life flourishes unseen by those who only glance, mosses and ferns carpeting rocks, insects burrowing beneath, small reptiles basking on sun-warmed stone, and in the dark hollows of cliffs bats and other creatures now claim refuge, their existence a testament to adaptability, the slow weave of survival across generations, silent yet potent, shaping the future in ways invisible to casual eyes. Deserts have expanded where forests once stood, shifting sands covering bones and fossils alike, yet even here life endures, lichens clinging to stone, insects burrowing beneath surface heat, small mammals nocturnal, emerging under the moon's pale glow to feed, to breed, to continue the thread of existence, a quiet persistence that seems almost imperceptible, but is as vital to the continuity of life as the thundering herds. of the past, a reminder that endurance is measured not only in strength or size, but in cleverness, in timing, in the ability to find shelter, to find food, to find life even when all seems barren. Along coastlines waves lap against shores shaped by millennia, carrying shells and coral, scattering sediments, reshaping cliffs, and in the shallows fish move in schools, their bodies glinting silver beneath water stained with the memory of ash, while larger predators glide beneath them, their sleek forms honed for stealth, for survival, for moments when opportunity must be seized without hesitation, and above, gulls and seabirds wheel and dive, catching fish in the fleeting warmth of air currents, their calls piercing the salty wind in a chorus that is as old as the tides themselves, yet never exactly the same twice. Storms continue to sweep across lands, carrying rain that hammers down like the voice of some unseen arbiter, lightning flashing in jagged brilliance, thunder rolling through valleys, shaking cliffs and trees alike, forcing every creature to respond in ways instinctive, learned, necessary, and in the aftermath, the world is reshaped, rivers redirected, valleys flooded, nests lost, trees toppled, yet the cycle of life pushes forward, quietly relentless, repairing, adapting, and advancing, each moment building upon the previous, each act of survival echoing through generations. In these cycles, small creatures flourish, finding niches unseen by the larger. Denizens of the land, burrowing into roots, slipping beneath reeds, nesting in fallen logs, storing seeds, capturing insects, their tiny lives a microcosm of persistence, their behaviors learned from instinct and imitation, their successes quiet but no less significant than the thunder of herds past, and it is this quiet continuity that ensures life never truly ends, that even after cataclysm, the thread is unbroken. Mountains, forests, wetlands, rivers, and coasts are interwoven with life, each system affecting the other, a complex web of cause and effect, of predator and prey, of growth and decay, and in every corner of this living tapestry, echoes of the giants remain. Bones beneath soil, traces in footprints fossilized in stone, impressions of claws in mud long dried, each one a reminder that even the greatest can fall, yet their influence ripples forward, shaping not only the physical landscape but the very course of evolution, guiding what emerges next, providing challenges and opportunities for those who survive, and in their absence, life has not weakened but shifted, diversified, transformed into forms both familiar and alien, yet bound by the same imperatives. In the deepest forests moss carpets the ground, fungi bloom in iridescent clusters, insects swarm in endless numbers, their collective movement like a living current, feeding birds, reptiles, and small mammals alike, creating microcosms of energy and life that sustain the ecosystem, while above, canopy layers provide refuge and hunting grounds for species adapted to height. Vision and agility, the interplay of shadow and light dictating movements, feeding times, predator strategies, and reproductive cycles in a rhythm that is both complex and delicate, honed over eons of trial and error, of adaptation to shifting climates, shifting predators, shifting prey. Plains stretch far and wide, the grass bending to wind, swaying under the muted sunlight, hiding the movements of creatures both large and small, their calls distant yet resonant across valleys, reminding the listener of the pulse of life that continues uninterrupted by extinction events, by cataclysms, by the slow, inexorable turning of the planet itself, and when night falls, it is not silent. Insects hum, amphibians croak, mammals scurry, and even in the dim light of stars filtered through lingering haze, life moves, searches, hunts, hides, and thrives, a testament to endurance, to the necessity of adaptability, to the unbroken thread that stretches from the age of giants into this world and forward into futures that remain unseen. The sky, though lighter than the smoke-choked days of eruption, still holds the scent of history, the faint metallic tang of ash, the trace of volcanic gases, carrying with it a subtle reminder of the power that shaped this world, a reminder that life must always respond to forces beyond its control yet never ceases in its efforts, never stops in its quest to endure, to persist, to flourish, and even as the millennia stretch on, even as continents drift, seas rise and fall, mountains crumble and reform, the echoes of the giants remain, not in presence but in influence, in the shaping of landscapes, in the challenges they left behind, in the evolutionary pressures that guided what came next, in the very DNA of creatures that carry forward their legacy unknowingly, a silent testament to persistence, to survival, to life that bends without breaking, adapts without surrendering, endures without complaint. Deserts bloom briefly after rains, marshes swell with life, forests thicken, rivers flood, and in all these cycles the dance continues, predator and prey, hunter and hunted, large and small, each playing a part in the endless story of existence, each heartbeat a note in a symphony that has played since life first breathed upon the earth, and will continue as long as the planet turns beneath sun and stars. And in this continuity there is hope, a quiet promise that though the past holds tragedies and giants are gone, their lessons are encoded in the resilience of what remains, in the diversity of life, in the unbroken chain of survival that stretches into the unknown future, ready to face whatever changes come next with the same stubborn persistence that allowed the first creatures to rise from waters to land, that allowed the great beasts to roam the earth, and that now allows all life, in forms small and great, to continue writing the story of the world. And so as night deepens across plains, forests, mountains, coasts, and rivers, the land breathes a slow exhalation, life stirring in every shadow, every root, every rock and crevice, a reminder that nothing truly ends, that extinction is transformation, that survival is continuous, and that the story of life, written across eons, continues onward, unbroken, eternal in its adaptation, infinite in its unfolding, a vast living tapestry stretching from the age of giants through every era, touching every creature, shaping every future, carrying the echoes of the past into a tomorrow that awaits yet unknown, and in this awareness lies the deepest understanding of existence. That life, in all its forms, endures, persists, evolves, and carries forward the legacy of all that came before, and will continue long after we are gone, a testament to the unyielding, magnificent, eternal story of survival, adaptation, and renewal that defines the planet itself. The dawn breaks slowly over a land shaped by millennia, the light diffused through a thin haze that hangs across plains, forests, and rivers, a pale gold brushing the edges of trees, glinting off the still waters, illuminating the contours of rocks worn smooth by time and wind, and as it spreads, the world breathes quietly, each leaf, each blade of grass, each creature responding to the gentle warmth, moving in rhythms ancient and instinctual, the pulse of life carried in scales, feathers, fur, and muscle, in wings that beat silently or with powerful strokes, in feet that press into soil, sand, mud, leaving impressions that speak of movement, of journeys taken, of survival, of adaptation. The echoes of the giants are everywhere, in the fossilized bones pressed into cliffs, in the impressions of claws and tails in hardened sediment, in the rivers and streams that have carved paths once followed by immense herds, in the patterns of erosion shaped by storms and floods, and yet in there. Absence life has not stagnated but evolved, diversified, transformed, creating a new world that bears the imprint of what was yet lives on in forms reshaped, reimagined, resilient. In the forests, the canopy shifts with light and shadow, small creatures darting through the undergrowth, mammals, reptiles, and birds navigating a landscape of roots, leaves, fallen branches, fungi, and moss, their senses finely tuned to every vibration, every scent, every movement, communicating in ways imperceptible to human eyes yet eloquent in meaning, their survival dependent on keen observation, quick reflexes, and the learned and inherited instincts passed through countless generations, each creature a node in the vast network of life, connected by predator and prey, by the competition for resources, by the hidden alliances that sustain the balance of the ecosystem. Along rivers, fish glide beneath the surface, moving in schools that shimmer like liquid silver, while larger predators patrol the currents, muscles rippling under sleek scales, eyes focused, timing precise, each strike measured, each pursuit a test of skill and endurance, and along the banks mammals gather, drinking cautiously, ears attuned to every distant sound, whiskers tasting the air, tails flicking in tension, the scent of water mingling with mud, with ash, with the faint odors of distant fires, all woven into a complex sensory map that guides decisions, movements, and survival strategies. Plains stretch far and wide, the grasses bending under wind, concealing movement, hiding nests, burrows, and the creatures that traverse them, from small burrowing mammals to swift-footed predators, each step a negotiation with the environment, each pause a moment of calculated risk, the open space offering both opportunity and exposure, a stage upon which life performs endlessly, in repetitions and variations shaped by climate, by geology, by chance, by the persistent drive to endure. The mountains rise in distant silhouettes, jagged peaks piercing clouds, valleys carved over eons, rivers running through them, their paths shifting slowly with tectonic forces, landslides, avalanches and storms, yet in their crags, hollows, and ledges life flourishes in hidden pockets, plants clinging to stone, insects finding shelter in crevices, birds nesting on narrow ledges, mammals scaling slopes or hiding in caves, each niche filled, each space exploited, the world full of life that persists against gravity, against wind, against scarcity, an intricate web of existence that relies on both adaptation and resilience. Deserts and arid lands bear witness to survival in extremes, seeds lying dormant for months or years, insects emerging in short bursts of activity, mammals venturing out at night when temperatures drop, reptiles basking briefly before retreating to burrows. The cycle of life compressed into moments of opportunity, and in this harshness, the resilience of life is made starkly visible, a testament to the ingenuity, the persistence, the relentless drive that flows through all creatures, large and small, visible and unseen. Skies are alive with motion, the birds tracing arcs and loops, gliding on thermals, calling to one another, feeding, mating, defending territory, wings catching light in iridescent flashes, the echoes of long-lost pterosaurs apparent not in form but in function, in behavior, in the elemental need to move through air, to navigate, to survive in 3 dimensions, to exploit the space above as others exploit the space below, a balance of forces, of energy, of life interacting with the medium that sustains it. Storms continue to sweep across the land, bringing rain, wind, lightning, thunder, each event reshaping the landscape, carving new gullies, flattening vegetation, flooding streams, leaving the survivors to adapt, to find shelter, to seek food, to move with the rhythm imposed by these forces. And in the aftermath, growth emerges, moss, fungi, seedlings, small shoots, life reclaiming, life persisting, life asserting itself in the face of destruction, a cycle as old as the earth itself. Oceans churn with currents, tides rise and fall, waves crash upon shores, carrying nutrients, shells, sediments, life forms in constant motion, from plankton to the descendants of great aquatic reptiles, fish moving in coordinated schools, cephalopods gliding and hiding, predators hunting with precision, scavengers following trails of opportunity, and, above, seabirds wheel and dive, their calls cutting through the wind, each creature playing its part in the endless dance of life, a continuity of movement and survival that is both fragile and unstoppable. Night falls and darkness spreads across plains, forests, mountains, deserts and coasts, yet the world does not sleep. Insects hum, frogs call, mammals forage, birds roost and stir, the air thick with scents of soil, water, vegetation, the faint metallic tang of past ash, the lingering aroma of decaying plant matter, all mingling in a rich tapestry that informs, guides, and connects the lives within it, a multi-sensory network of survival, a symphony without conductor yet precise and intricate in its patterns. Beneath the surface of soil, burrows house generations of mammals, each layer a record of activity, of survival strategies, of care for young, of storage for lean times, the tactile experience of life pressing against walls of earth, the warmth of body against body, the scent of kin and prey, the subtle vibrations of movement, all a microcosm reflecting the larger forces above ground, where predators, plants, and weather continue their interactions. In every biome, life persists, adapts, transforms. Forests reclaim lands altered by fire or flood, rivers carve new channels, mountains erode and shift, oceans deposit and reshape coastlines, deserts expand and contract with climate. Yet in every shift, in every change, life continues, adjusting, evolving, surviving, the ancient pulse of existence beating steadily beneath the apparent chaos. And though the giants are gone, their influence endures, not merely in fossils but in evolutionary pressures that guided the forms of descendants, in the niches they left behind, in the challenges they imposed on prey and competitors alike, shaping adaptations that ripple across species, across continents, across ages, a legacy written in DNA. in behavior, in Sioux. Revival strategies honed over countless generations, invisible yet powerful, and as the sun rises again, pale gold spilling across the land, life awakens in synchronous rhythm, the trees releasing oxygen into the warm air, leaves fluttering, roots stretching, flowers blooming, insects taking flight, mammals emerging from burrows and nests, predators prowling stealthily, birds lifting into thermals, rivers reflecting light as they flow toward seas, waves lapping gently against shores, all interconnected, all acting within the same network of life, each movement echoing the lessons of the past, each survival a continuation of the story of this world, a narrative stretching from the age of giants through every era, and into futures yet to be born, and in the quiet moments, when the wind shifts just so and the light falls across the landscape, one can almost feel the presence of what has passed, the shadows of great creatures lingering in the mind's eye, a faint resonance in the bones of the earth, in the flow of water, in the rustle of leaves, in the cry of birds, in the breath of the wind, reminding all who witness, all who exist, that life endures, that extinction is transformation, that survival is a continuous thread that links every being from the smallest burrower to the mightiest predator, from the tiniest insect to the creatures that once dwarfed the world, a tapestry of existence that is infinite, resilient, persistent, and magnificent, and so as the day continues, the cycles of light and shadow, of hunger and satiation, of life and death, move forward, each creature playing its part, each heartbeat a note in the eternal symphony, each breath a testament to the unbroken story of life on earth, stretching from the forgotten giants to the present moment, and into the endless future, carrying forward the legacy of adaptation, of resilience, of survival, and of life itself, a story without end, a song that continues across time, across space, across generations, infinite, unstoppable, eternal, the magnificent, unyielding narrative of existence.